In the digital realm where shadows reside, a channel unfolds with nowhere to hide. The Grim Reaper Network, a name whispered low, on YouTube's grand stage, a spectral show. You're scrolling through shorts or a long-form deep dive, watching the moments where the spirits revive. So hit that like button, don't you delay. For every dark chuckle, come what may. Subscribe to the channel, let the bell ring clear, and all videos click, banish all fear. From the realm of the living to the great beyond, your digital devotion, a lasting bond. From
and welcome to, when I can find, oh, there we go. I've lost where I am. Typical. Right, give me 2 seconds, ladies and gentlemen, while I try and sort this out. There we go. Right, welcome to the judgment panel. I say that tongue-in-cheek because nothing we say here is in any way constitutes anything other than our own opinions, and we're going to try and keep it in line with our terms of service. Hello, Mellows. Good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Today's show, topic is, should we be looking at the way that our sentencing within the UK for anybody who commits any form of SA against a child should get a minimum term of life imprisonment? There are arguments for, there are arguments against, and I've spoken to a number of people, and in theory, people are suggesting that it's a good idea. However, there is the cost involved and the fact that we haven't got enough prison space, etc., to house these wonderful, stupid criminals. But we don't have capital punishment anymore because there is a risk that we could actually put someone behind bars for life and sentence them to having their head removed. And years later, it turns out that they didn't do it. And this is one of the reasons, or the main reason why it was repealed, because we were giving posthumous pardons to people. So what I'm looking at really is a way around it, and I'm suggesting that the minimum term for first offence is life. And the logical reasons for this is that we are protecting children, regardless of where they live within Great Britain, what community they're in, etc. It will A, act as a deterrent potentially, or B, it will reduce further offences. So that's the topic, and it's, you know, down to you, the good people who are watching, listening, to put your ideas either in the commentary or when I open up the panel to come up on the panel. Now, I've already sent the link out privately to a few people who can, they want to come up, they can do to kick this off and give me their point of view. The only thing I will say is we have to keep this in line with the terms of service of YouTube. Any failure to do so, the mods will remove you for a 24-hour period, just to make sure that we don't break any terms of service from that point of view. Hello, Killing. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. So, if anyone's got any ideas of a way around this, a couple of suggestions have been made of uh, a minimum of 10 years hard labor, so to speak, remove all so called privileges from these people while they're in jail. And remember, folks, it's not just men that commit these atrocities, it's also women as well. So I'm not favoring either or in any way, shape, or form. I just want us to look at ways to protect the children, you know. So it's entirely up to yourselves. Hello, support. How you doing? Hacksaw Grin Duck. I like that one. So yeah, I mean, as I say, from my own point of view, I can only put it from a personal point of view. I honestly believe that life imprisonment is too good for them. However, um, on saying that, the costs would be astronomical. And also, as it has been pointed out to me, we don't actually have the prison space for them. But anybody who wishes to say hello, come up onto the panel, yeah, by all means, just let me know in the chat and I'll sort out a link. I mean, it's very difficult to have a conversation on your own or a discussion on your own. It does need to have other people to put their viewpoint. But we're going live as normal on the Grim Reaper Network, and we're also transmitting over onto Mamba Bear's channel as well. For people who are watching there thinking, what the hell's going on? What's this judgment panel? This came about by accident. However, I do think in some cases it's probably a good idea because there are no true judgments as such, but we can all chip in and give our own point of view to on this subject. I mean, if you look in the description that I've put out for tonight's show, in England and Wales, the rape of a child under 13 is up to life imprisonment as a possible. These are possible sentences. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get life. Assault by penetration of a child under 13 up to life. Okay. SA, a child under 13 up to 14 years. SA, the child 13 to 15 up to 14 years. Then you've got mitigating circumstances. And depending on the circumstances leading up to it, such as grooming and this, that, and the other. You see, I've got this major problem that there are no mitigating circumstances, and I don't believe that you should get time off for good behavior. I don't believe that you should get time off for pleading guilty earlier rather than later. At the end of the day, I think that we need to have a judicial system which has no choice but to give a minimum sentence. In Scotland, it's even worse. They tend to offer, or what appears to be, lesser sentences to people who have been convicted of this vile crime. The repeat rates of offenders when released over in the States, and that's the only information I can give is in relation to that, is 35% of those that have been released and caught with a second offence. So really, you know, those people who may think that I'm being too hard in my approach, and what I'm thinking is totally unworkable, Yeah, under the current system, it probably is. However, it does not mean to say that the current system cannot be changed. Um, what do you think, folks? There's a few of you listening in at the moment. Although I must admit the numbers have gone down since they've realised what the subject is, because some people don't want to talk about it. Some people just think that, yeah, it's a risk that, we're prepared to take. It's collateral damage. I mean, somebody who is a victim to any of these sick-minded people, they have to live with this for the remainder of their life. They are a victim for the remainder of their life. And yes, they can live with it. They never get over it, and this is the downside. So why should the perpetrator get away with it and us turn around and say, well, you've done 10 years, we're going to put you on the sex register, put a crime prevention order on you, etc., for 10 years, maybe 15. Well, as soon as that's over and done with, they tend to be like, doing it again, unfortunately. So I'm looking at ways that we can protect our children. Because to me, children are the most important thing. So, what are your thoughts? Please let me know in the chat. And as I say, if you're going to come up, just let me know and I'll stick the link out. Welcome in. If you know, you know. Good to see you. Thank you so much. I know this can be a very raw subject. And I will say to people, if you are affected by this in any way, shape, or form, please seek professional advice. And I don't wish to bring up any memories or anything like that. What I am trying to do is to discuss what we can do to prevent this from happening to our children. And when I say our children, I mean all children. The laws of sentencing, the rule of sentencing, the judge's guideline, there is no consistency whatsoever. And I think if you just look at the recent release of information from the Epstein papers, etc., and how that goes, and King Charles III's brother and his implication in it, although everything is being denied officially, etc. I think this is something which highlights the fact that there's rules for thee and rules for them, and they are different in a lot of ways. We had Jimmy Savile, who was well known over here. He was employed by a certain British broadcasting corporation for many years. And, it was highlighted, but no charges were ever brought. And posthumously, after his passing, there was a lot of people who celebrated, and there was also a lot of people who didn't get the justice that they deserved as a result, because it was kept under wraps. And even at the time, the Department of Justice, allegedly, justice, whatever it was, Crown Prosecution Service, that's the one, failed to address the situation, failed to do an investigation properly, and failed to bring this wonderful so-called celebrity to the justice system. So, what are your thoughts? Should we have a minimum sentence? If so, what should it be? Do we allow for the so-called do-gooders to turn around and say, "Oh, they can be rehabilitated"? I say bull to that. Yes, Fallen. Yeah, I know you'll come up. You do enjoy coming up. So what I'll do is I'll put the link in both Mama Bears and in the Grim Reaper. Just give me a second while I figure out how to do that again. Because I've forgotten. Oh, here we go. That's the link. Yeah, that'll do. Now, as I say, please remember that you're only either going to be giving your personal viewpoint, or you can play devil's advocate. But if you play devil's advocate, beware. Because I have no time for these people. I don't believe that they are, that, I mean, physiologically, they're humans. But anyone who does any of these despicable acts to our kids can't be a human. I know it's you. You're flashing at me. Hello, Fallen.
Hey, how's it going?
Nah, it's all right. I'm all right, mate. Thank you for joining us. This is
Okay. Oh, I
a
appreciate
regular.
it. I'm going to behave myself this time, or I'll just behave
Really?
myself like I'm myself. You know, Grim, what you were talking about earlier, like in the minimum sentences and whatever, I mean, I think a lot of some of the quietness, I think, on people not speaking up, or let's just say speaking their mind, is because what they were talking about before is the fear, and the fear that in some way the subject has got people under, on like, I'll just be quiet and not say nothing, and as long as it bypasses me and it doesn't affect me, because it is a really I don't know if the word vicarious is the proper word, if I'm actually like thinking of the proper definition for that word.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's difficult, because it's like that fine line to tread on, because what you said about rules for thee and not for me, or in that aspect of how can you ever get rid of it if there's a class of individuals that are outside whatever in the description that you put in the description on what those laws are for the rules for me and not for thee, is that how can we ever really, if we critically think about it, stop it? We'll
Well,
only be able to okay.
yeah, no, what I was going to say was they are the guidelines that judges in England and Wales, right? Because we're split up in, if you like, little regions of Great Britain, right, and UK. But they're the guidelines that are issued to judges to take other things into account when sentencing. Right, there is a full list. I wasn't prepared to go into them because
Right.
it talks about different levels. But my argument, if you like, or what I'm trying to get across is, if you're saying up to life imprisonment, for argument's sake, right? Why is it up to? Why not just life imprisonment? Cycling, as Sir said, there's no rehabilitation whatsoever, that they are untreatable. I agree, but unfortunately, these predators are protected sometimes by the state, and it's not. I'm referring to both here and over in the States, from that point of view, right? Because you've got a similar problem depending on where you live, depends on how you get treated. But I'm saying that at the end of the day, these people, they need to be treated one way only, and that is from the point of view that we have to protect children from reoccurrence. If we are going to let these people out on the streets, whether it be man or woman, right? If we're going to let them back out into society, we need to safeguard our children at the end of the day. And this is where the problem is that there's some people who turn around and say, oh, they can be rehabilitated, they can be treated, we can castrate, we can do this, we can do that. And I'm a little bit along the lines of, it's black and white to me. There's no grey. If you are abusing a child in any way, you should be removed from society upon conviction. The problem that we have is the fact that, we can't go down the lines of capital punishment over here because of the problems that in itself created many years ago, when there wasn't as much scientific evidence that can be proven that somebody didn't do it. So somebody who had gone down that road and had been legally euthanized after a conviction was given a pardon after they'd been found that they couldn't have done it. So there is that risk, and that risk is the problem. And I don't know what the way round is other than having a minimum sentence. But as it's been highlighted to me, there's not enough room in the prisons for all of these people to be housed. And my solution is build more prisons. Over to you, Paula. What do you think?
Okay. I think that the risk assessment of what you were talking about. I mean, let's say, an innocent person and people being accused of the SA or whatever, no matter what age it is, right? Of innocent people, and then going, okay, under this age limit or this guideline, is that in that risk assessment, right? It doesn't matter what we actually think of in that situation. Did it really happen? Did it not happen? I think as a society, we have to understand what trans moves beyond that. Yeah, moves beyond the age limit. Is there something that moves beyond the age limit? We can put age limits on a lot of things like drinking, owning firearms, having intimacy with another individual. We can keep putting age limits on all of these things, right? And claim as a society, that's what we choose, which is best for society, right? And we have to understand is that as a person under a certain amount of age, like we as a society have made the assessment that there is no consent. There's no way that anybody under this term can consent to anything. So we as a society have claimed, and now here's a risk assessment like you're talking about. But innocence, or innocence, as in we would call under a certain age, we would call them innocence. That's innocence that's being taken or being removed. Is that transcends that age limit is innocence. So in those minimum sentences or whatever, and claiming that's a minimum is like there's an innocence that transcends that. It doesn't matter if you're 30 and you're innocent. You're innocent, and that innocence is just as important as the innocence of someone under 18, because
Yep.
innocence is innocence. There's no age limit that dictates that.
Yep. Yep. And this is why I say you can't put capital punishment in, or legalization of the death penalty, for argument's sake, right? That's my opinion, right? Whether that's right or wrong, I couldn't tell you. You would be, because it's only my viewpoint on that. I don't want to be in a situation. I don't want it to be where there's no. Later on in life, it can't be. It can be proven that they didn't do it. I don't want to get into this prosperous pardon, right? Because the evidence is, which has been brought, can demonstrate that they were wrongfully convicted. But at the time, they were rightly convicted because of the evidence that showed. That does, I just want to rule that out. People should be able to have that right, shall we say, regardless. However, what I would say is the sentencing over here is ridiculous. It breaks it down to age, and the worst is if a child is under 13. Well, what about 15 to 16-year-olds, where they've been assaulted by somebody, and they're living in fear of being believed, right? Because the emphasis is usually put on the victim to prove it rather than the other way around, right? In the sense that if you're under 13, there's no way you can mentally understand the reasoning behind giving consent. My argument is, if it should be implied that there is no consent under whatever the legal age is to be active, where you can give consent. I mean, in some countries, you can marry at the age of 9. But I'm not referring to those countries. I'm referring to Great Britain. And the way that our sentencing guidelines is ridiculous, where we take into account how soon somebody pleaded guilty, and we knock, in some cases in Scotland, 50% off whatever they would have got as a sentence. In Wales and England, it's a third. If they admitted it, they're guilty. They should still get exactly the full term, regardless, because you can't risk them being put back into society, because they're going to do it again. The evidence is there to prove it.
And one of the problems is, like with the files and whatever you were talking about earlier, it's like one of the problems with these things of like petitioning the government, or, trying to do other things, is like, when people realize, hey, the wolf is guarding the hen house. You know what I mean? So it's like, even in doing those steps forward, I think a lot of people step aside or step back too, is because when you come to that realization is, those are wolves guarding the hen house. So if I put my trust in the wolves that they're going to do the right thing, and let's say protecting these children, the wolves just take the children for themselves. They don't They don't look at it as any other way. They just take the chickens when they want it and they take them for themselves. And you're still trying to figure out, how to protect your chickens. But protection you go to is wolves in some way, so it's really difficult in finding that line, even in our conscience of I almost want to say what's correct and what's not correct, what's like feasible and what is socially acceptable to that. There's a lot of people in society, and so everybody has their own opinions. So peer pressure, like we talked about before, peer pressure tries to work on people, puts them in fear of doing what's against the collective or what we believe the
Okay.
collective is.
Okay. So the way I'm putting it is, if a child is a victim of SA, right? Doesn't matter what it is, from grooming, not actually doing anything, but the intention could be there. I say could, chances are probably is, right? But to viewing indecent images, a child has is a victim. You are, as a perpetrator of that crime, you are treating a child as and I'm going to risk it here, a sex object, right? That is the big problem, right? And the child has got to live with that for the remainder of their lives, where society or the judicial system says, well, if I sentence you to 10 years, you can then be released, but we'll, just to be on the safe side, we'll put conditions on you for a further 10 years when you're out. And part of that is because somewhere someone has said, oh, they can be treated, they can be rehabilitated, etc. And I'm saying, in my opinion, that's not possible. Won't be a second. I'm just going to bring Brooklyn up. Hello, Brooklyn.
Hey, how you doing there, Grim Reaper? And I forgot the other gentleman's name. I recognize your voice.
I recognize yours.
No, the other gentleman, I recognize. I know who you are, obviously, but I recognize the other gentleman's voice. I spoke with him on panel not long ago. I just don't remember his name.
Yeah, you keep changing your name, Brooklyn.
Well, actually, what did I come up as last time?
Cycling.
No, I came up as Brooklyn. I believe I might have. If you recall, I use a different account when I come on Streamline panels.
That's correct, yes. And you
Yeah.
came up as Strictly Cycling.
Did I? Okay. Well, that's not. This is not
Yeah.
my strictly cycling account. This is another
Yeah.
account.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You've already written in the chat. I mean, I know you. I recognize your voice from the last time. And because Muxter came up, if you remember.
Yes, I recognize the voice. Yes. Okay, that's his
Yeah.
name, Muxter. Okay.
So
How you
anyway,
doing there, Muxter?
I'm not Mux. No, that's Fallen.
Oh,
Muxter's not
okay.
here.
Oh, I see. Oh, so, okay, I got you now. Hello, Paulie.
Fallen.
So,
Paulin.
You'll get it right in a minute.
You know, I came up in specific, actually. I'm not going to be up here long because I tried to put a comment in and YouTube wouldn't take it. And basically, the comment was, my parents told me not to have sex till I was 18 years old. Well, I didn't listen to them. When I was
Okay.
15, I hooked up with a 16-year-old girl. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because, you had kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago. It depends on which society you're talking about. In some societies, you can get married when you're 9. I mean,
Yes.
do the parents really have a right to tell their child at what age they can start having sex?
I'm not referring to that. What I'm referring to is men and women. I'll say men and women, right? Because over the age of consent, whatever that age is, I don't know what it is over in the States. It depends, I think, where you are. But over here, the age of consent is 16, right? There is some rules, law in regards to sending pictures of someone between the age of 16 and 18 electronically. However, it is deemed that if consent is given for should they wish to indulge. I'm referring to these, I've got to put it in a way which is YouTube friendly, these morons who believe that it's okay to essay a child,
Oh, it's obviously not. But what about
right?
this? For,
But no, hang
I
on.
have something as I have something to from what he said to begin with about 15 and 16 and something to do with grooming. Like, does a parent really have the right to tell their children, hey, you can't? I believe they do. They have that right. Now, as in the child can't consent because they're under a certain age, is that it's like you said, you never consented to that. You may have heard what they said, and they had every right to say that because, as a parent, in some way, we try to protect our children because we could know what those roads may lead to, but we can't, I guess, and actually know for sure how you'll handle the situation when you get to it because you're not at the age of consent. So that's one reason why I think children get with other children. And about the grooming thing is, I think that in the public education system, I think they're already grooming children to have relationships with other children by having the education of I guess it's sex education. So they're actually grooming children themselves and trying to take over or in saying, we're the state, we're going to we're going to do what either your parents can't do or don't want to do, or we'll step in place of your parents because we actually have physical custody of you. Because when your child goes into school, they're taking physical custody of them. So they're actually, at that point in time, the guardian of the child. So they get away with doing their curriculum to them because you've given your consent as an adult for these other people to, in some way, groom your children.
well, it's not just,
So
that's not the only way children are groomed in schools. Some curriculums are religious based or religion based.
absolutely. It's all
Yeah.
grooming, right?
Okay, so let me just. I can only talk for UK, Britain, right? Okay, I can't really talk for other areas because, or different countries, because it depends on where you live and what the local laws are, etc. But what I say is that over here, the age of consent is 16. Before that, the law says that you are not able to give consent because you are a minor, right? Now, I think that parents should have say in whether or not a child is allowed to go down the route of having or what is covered in the syllabus in school for sex education, for argument's sake, right? And I think that should be done in conjunction with parents to make things right. So, yeah, I mean, from that perspective, I agree. But I would also say that the way that the, uh, we the way we bring our children up um, should be to respect ourselves as individuals so that they understand. I mean, some people argue that sex education should be done by the parents, and I don't think you necessarily was. No, at one time you put your faith in the school to give a non-bias and to talk about the practical aspects of sex education. Now there's a lot of other aspects which are put into it as well. So I think that that sort of guidance from the school needs to be addressed with the parents first. If the parents agree to it, then the child goes into those lessons. If the parents disagree, they should be allowed to withdraw their child from those lessons, all right? Or to go, okay, well, they can go for the biological side of things, but not anything else.
I have a statement for that. My statement to that is that, I think that parents do have that right, and I think that schools should in some way abide by it. But if there's a thing, a society put in place, it's like um, the other panelist said that at a certain age he got with another person at a certain age, and it's like in that education, whether they call it sex ed or not, it should be nobody's of age of consent. And that should be exactly what it is across the board. Even as in children in school, if they go into any classes, you don't have the age to consent, so you better not do it, or there's going to be strict penalties on you, is in the education part of it, and working with society and trying to stop it and put ends to it, to a matter that starts from a base level, is that when they try to make all the adults afraid, they should actually put that in the education of, you're not of age of consent, so if you do it, you suffer the same ramifications as anybody else that does it. And that should be the education. That should really be the education across the board, is
Yeah,
is
but
that same
let's
kind of way,
say,
because if
but let's say I didn't use a prophylactic, which I did, and the girl became pregnant. Now I'm in a situation where you have children are having children, which rarely works out. I don't know. Anyway, listen, thanks for having me up on the panel. I'm going to drop back down into the chat. I just wanted to mainly say what I started off with. So,
Yeah, no. Thanks for dropping in. Talking openly. I mean, that's talking openly about this subject is really one of the reasons why I thought I'd talk about it, because people don't like talking about it. And they agree, yes, something needs to be done. And as soon as you put a proposal forward, oh, I don't know whether or not I want to support that, etc. I'm talking about raising the awareness of what is actually going on and the problems associated when an adult has been convicted of these vile crimes. That a minimum term should be a minimum term. Take it away from the judiciary from putting in things like, mitigating circumstances. Like, I'm sorry, but at the time I was going through a divorce and I wasn't feeling too good, or I was mentally unstable at the time. I didn't mean to do it. I'm really sorry. Bollocks.
well, it's a mental illness for which there's no cure.
Well, I agree, but I'm looking at a sort of, like, if you like, a deterrent. You're always going to get some.
a mental illness, see, when you use those words, mental illness, it's like, for which there is no cure. It's like, well, we'll just say that about every mental illness, but to say that there's no treatment, there's the whole thing with mental illness and understanding it's a mental illness.
Well, I don't
That's
see it
what it actually is.
I don't
It's
see it as,
mental.
I don't see it as a mental illness. That's the issue for me. As I say, I see things in black and white. They committed a vile act against a minor. What we have over here is we have levels of what is seen as unacceptable to, oh, well, there's 13 to 15-year-olds. Therefore, we're going to treat them differently.
Well, what about this before I step off the panel? What if the underage person, be it boy or girl, actually wants to engage in that activity with an adult? What if? Because that does happen
Well,
from time to time.
it'd still be
I
illegal.
can tell you, from personal experience is that you have to be really careful. And this is just from personal experience because you can run. I ran. You can run as fast as you want. But it's like what I was thinking in that same aspect is that if that underage person believes that they're mentally in themselves capable of having an attraction for an elderly person, they also are mentally capable of believing that they're not actually the age that they are. They believe they're older. So, in that capacity, is that let's say you turned down. I mean, I don't know how to say this other than there's a saying that says, "Hell had no wrath like a woman scorned." That's actually a thing that's actually out there. So I'm not just making it up. Is that we as individuals, whether we're male or female, we get stuck into that trap because you can run all you want, but you have to be. I mean, I'm just saying from personal experience, it's like that's such a fine line of how to care for that individual being underage and thinking that they're older than they actually are. I mean, and you actually, it's like a very adult situation that they put people in because that will put you in such an adult situation that
Hmm.
it almost becomes mind-boggling on um, yeah, just how you're going to juggle that because it's just like that. Here comes all the fear, right? Because this person can just say stuff. This person could just do what? You harm their intellect or their feelings, their emotions in that aspect. There's no telling what they'll do because they're already wanting to engage in an activity that's almost forbidden to a certain extent, right? So, what other activity, if they're going to engage in that, would they not engage with you? It's so. Oh my goodness, it is. It'll put you in an adult situation really quick, and they're not an adult, so you have to like try to because they want to be an adult, and they're really not. Is how to reason with I almost want to say this is coming to my mind is some way a mentally disturbed person because they're believing in their mind they're older than they actually are. So in some way they're having a mental breakdown or they're having a mental um, experience in themselves. Now to
They're
say that
not
there's no
mature
cure
enough
for
to.
that or there's treatment for it.
Yeah.
Well, I can.
I don't see it as being an issue of mental health, shall we say, in either situations. I think that as a society, we have lost um, the ability to educate the young. I'll give you an example.
Gentlemen, I'm going
Okay.
to step down. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. I'll give you an example of what it is I'm trying to say. Thanks, Brooklyn, for coming up. We tell our children to run away from strangers, right? Or not to talk to strangers. But once a year, we take them to this little old man, allegedly, in a red suit, and we encourage them to talk to this fictitious character once a year. To me, that's a
Don't
double
forget
standard.
that part of sitting on his lap, right? Because
Well, it's
that's a
not
big
allowed in.
no-no.
Yeah,
But
it's. I think that's been taken out the equation in a lot of areas. Certainly over here, I don't think I don't think that's encouraged in any way, shape, or form anymore. usually standing next to, but either way, you're still encouraging your child to talk to someone they don't know, and you're doing it under the auspices that it's safe. And a child can get confused as a result. So to me, we shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be saying one thing and then, once a year doing the opposite, because it's in a department store, or it's out in the public. There's a lot of these offenders who target younger children because they are easier to control, to manipulate, etc. And then you've got the teenage rebellion years, as I would call it, where the teenager is rebelling against what they're being taught because they don't believe that it's correct. Well, to me, that's not an issue of mental health or anything. The parents should have a way to diffuse that and to explain the reasoning why and the consequences for their actions should they wish to get into a relationship with somebody and take that next step. I'm talking really of how we protect our children from these vile people. As I say, it's not. I'm not breaking it down to men or women, because both can be just as bad as each other. And in recent years, more women have been reported for it than ever before. And it's becoming known that women can do it, whereas in the past it was, oh no, a woman wouldn't do that. And well, I'm sorry, but here's a wake-up call. They can, and they do, and they have. Because they get fixations on young boys and young girls as well. And when I say young, I'm talking, depending on what your legal age of what a minor is, it's a minor. I don't care whether that child is, under 13 or whether they're 13 to 15. There should be no separation between the ages from that point of view. It's still a minor. If we're turning around and saying that you are a minor till you are 16, when you're then legally allowed to do X, Y, and Z, with the exception of drinking and voting, for argument's sake, but you got everything else, then okay, that's what the law says. But why should somebody be treated differently because they've essayed somebody who is a little bit older? Doesn't mean to say they're mature enough to understand what's going on. And I'm looking at a way to deter people from doing this and to encourage people to speak up, and to for children who've been assaulted in the past to speak up as well, and they need to be believed, so that it can go forward if necessary to charges, to a trial, and if convicted, then there should be standard minimum sentences given, regardless of any so-called mitigating circumstances, because these are mitigating circumstances are put to the judge on behalf of the defendant to justify why they did X, Y, or Z. And that's what I think is wrong. Having, as I say, in the description, I've listed the way judges sentence convicted morons, right? Based upon mitigating circumstances, which could include mental health issues, right? In brackets, it's wrong. Well, what you're saying is we're going to sentence them for X number of years, but we're going to knock off some time because they admitted it straight away. Hold their hands up. Yes, I'm guilty. Well, yeah, you're guilty. You shouldn't have done it in the first place. Now that child has got to live with those experiences for the rest of their lives. Whereas you, we can send you away for a few years and then we can deem you as being served your time. But the risk is too great for them to reoffend. That's the issue I'm a little bit more concerned with, is how do we try and solve that issue? And the only thing I can think of is a minimum term of life imprisonment.
That's a lot, though, Grim. You just put a lot on the table, really honestly. You put a lot on the table in those words that you said to go, my, this equals life imprisonment. It's almost like, I mean, and I get where you're coming from, because like you said, that's your opinion and it's just black and white. There's no gray. But you just explained a big gray area and just went, it's all just life imprisonment as a way to get through that. But I mean, I get it to why you would say that, but to go, we should believe hearsay is, and I'm not trying to advocate that victims don't have the right to be heard, but to go, they should be believed. Is you can't believe someone just because they say something. There's a lot of stuff that
No, no,
really
no,
needs
no.
to
What
take
I actually
place.
said was, what I said, Paulin, was upon conviction.
Oh, you said they should be able to speak and be believed.
Yeah, by the
They,
investigators, right? It's still got to go to court. And don't forget, the prosecution has to um, deliver a case beyond a reasonable doubt. So if somebody is pleading not guilty, you've got to go along the lines that until such time as they are convicted. If someone turns around and holds their hand up and says, yes, I'm guilty of that, why should they get any reduced time just because they've admitted it? That's what I'm getting at.
I get that part. I get the part of why should somebody, it's kind of like when the if the popo pulls you over and they go, if you're honest with me, this will go easier on you. And they're really going, self-incriminate yourself so I can, how far I can throw the book at you. Because honesty, when they do that, is just a way of getting you to self-incriminate. So it's like, I do get that. If somebody says, yeah, I did that, and then they understand that that's wrong, say I did that, and you know what I mean, that's like that mitigating circumstances and stuff like that is like, yeah, okay, they could just be saying that to trick everybody. They could be saying it because it's truly inside of them to say it and being truthful. So it's like, we as society, we do put a lot of stuff on ourselves. Is because we deem ourselves intelligent creatures,
Yeah.
that we are intelligent. We're above the animals per se, because we have like the ability to I don't know, build a 747 where no other animal can do that. But
Hmm.
placing those rules upon ourselves to go, that to govern ourselves, we have to err on the side of caution to a certain extent. So
Yeah.
when it comes to children, or the innocence in a certain way being taken from a child, we want to go with, there is no, there is nothing. It's like that. It's all or nothing. You don't get, even if you're honest, you don't get a break that you would get a break if somebody said they didn't do it and they swore that they didn't do it, but that they got found guilty and they're going to get life. And to go, they didn't do it, but they get life. And the dude who claims, oh, I did it, my bad, oopsie, okay, they get 10 years. Oh, no, they're going to get life too. is what comes to it. And it's like, we as society, it almost makes, it's like I would shy away from it, but since it gets to that tipping of the scale where that's not balanced at all, that scale's not balanced, because somebody's life can be ruined just in getting to court. And even after court, they get found innocent. Their life has already been like demolished just in that, like you said, well, there should be detectives, they should do this, and they should get their day in court, and they should have to go all this, they should have to mortgage their house, their life should be ruined, all their assets should be taken from them, and at the end of it, they're found innocent. Well, see, you got nothing to worry about. You were found innocent. Their life is demolished. Their innocence has just been taken from them. What makes their innocence less than that child's innocence? That it's okay to do that to an innocence. It's not okay.
No, no,
It's
no,
just
no.
not okay.
I think the thing. Okay, so obviously it depends on again where you live, but let's put it this way: the number of false allegations that are made, right, compared to the number of truthful allegations, right? And if you look at that from a point of view that if somebody goes to the police to report it and they are a minor, so they've spoken to the parents, right, and they've gone to the police, right? It's been investigated and it's been referred for charges, etc., and all the rest of it. Right? If there's enough evidence to take it to court, then it should go before the court. Right? The problem is society, right, views that person as being guilty, regardless of what the outcome is. In some cases, right, and that is where I think if somebody is being found not guilty, right, then they are not guilty because they've gone before the courts, they've gone before a jury, and they have been found not guilty by the jury. Therefore, there is no further case to answer, right? Now, as a result of that, obviously, that person can then take the authorities to task over the fact that they brought a case which was proven that they weren't guilty, right? Now, whether you how far you take that is entirely down to the individual, right? But they can have that redress at the end of the day. So there is something there which is built into the system to allow them. I'm talking about people who have been convicted and getting wishy-washy sentences, right? Basically, that do absolutely nothing, and they are free to continue. I mean, I've seen situations where they've been found guilty over here, and they've been given probation, and they've been put on the register and under license for a period of, for argument's sake, 10 years, and then afterwards they've been deemed to have served their debt to society. What about the debt to the child that they assaulted? That's my concern. And what about the risk associated with them officially having done their time served, and then they're free to continue doing what they did beforehand? It's about protection for the children. See what I'm trying to explain? Does it make sense, or am I sort of like not putting it across right?
Grim, it makes sense to, and it's good that everybody's character in some reflects who they are in that aspect. It's what makes us all individuals. So
Yeah.
it makes sense to your character. What you're saying makes sense to what you say, and this is my belief, this is my opinion. And that's why I think that it's good that even in your thing, it reads the judgment panel. is because in a panel, you get other people's perspectives because it's just like that. Whatever time is on the books for you to serve for what you did, at that time, your time is served because
Hmm.
anybody can get out and we can go. But this protects children. It's like really we're protecting innocence. We have to. I mean, you don't have to, but just in my opinion, in my character, it's important to protect innocence because innocence transcends that age barrier and that we have to protect innocence. So even if somebody did somebody's life in and they did their time and they got out, and well, they're free to do it again. If they choose to do it again, how are we not going to protect the innocence of that person if they chose to do that again? Or whatever victim was involved in whatever crime it is,
Right.
when those
Okay. So,
terms.
all right. I'll give you another example. Okay. Um, somebody is accused. They get convicted, or they plead guilty, or they plead no contest. Okay. They're given a lighter sentence against somebody who pleads not guilty but is found guilty. Okay. And they continue to protest their innocence after they've been sentenced. Okay. However, there's no legal grounds for them to appeal, all right, regardless of how many times they try to appeal the conviction, right? Because the conviction is sound. However, there is always that possibility, regardless of how long it could take, that they could, if they were innocent, prove their innocence at a later date. Right. The problem which I actually have is the high percentage rate of of these people reoffending. And I'm not talking about shoplifting or something petty like that. I'm talking about the effect it has on the child, right? As they grow up, as they go into um, manhood, womanhood, right? How their relationships are affected at a later date, and if they are able to marry, etc., live with the what has happened, how that reflects on the way that they bring their children up, and in some cases they wrap their children up in cotton wool, etc. The problem I've got is the effects. They actually become collateral damage because they have done their time served and then been released back into general society, but that child is still living those horrors, and it has a profound effect on them for the rest of their lives, one way or another. They may not, you may not see it, and there are a lot of people who have taken that, then they've done wonderful things in their lives, but it's still there. It's still something which happened to them that they had no control over. And I'm just saying that from my perspective, it is quite simple. It is, you've convicted this, you've been convicted of this act against a child, against a minor. And I'm saying that there is no minimum sentence. There should be a minimum sentence. And what that minimum sentence looks like, I don't know. I've just taken it to the extreme because I think that maybe that's where we should start. If you're in negotiation with something, you start at this, you ask for what the ridiculous. You're not going to get it. I know that this is probably never going to happen, but it's how I see things. And to me, I think that we need to protect all children of all ages, of all nationalities or communities or whatever you want to call it, right? Because it is so wrong. And
Okay.
I don't believe that any can be rehabilitated in society. And as AJM, hi AJM, as you put it in there, nowadays the time served doesn't match the crime because we don't have a structure for sentencing. And there's always these stupid things which says mitigating circumstances, and we give time off. And I've seen it, time off for not good behavior, but for admitting that you're guilty early on. And this is what I see as being the problem. Don't give out anything for mitigating circumstances. If you're guilty, you're guilty. If you own up to it, you own up to it. You own it, right? And you serve whatever that minimum term is. And even then, if you are released in society, there's got to be safeguards in order to make sure that the children are safe.
Well,
That's
I
what I'm
want to.
trying to get
I
at.
gotta. Let me. I'm going to make this disclaimer really quick too before I get into this argument.
You're going to
Um,
do it again on me, aren't you?
I don't want any children being hurt. I've had children, and as parents, man, it's our obligation. It's something inherent. I mean, even though we claim we're above the other animals, it's almost like even if you went down the animal scale, man, parents in some way do what they can to protect their children. They'll put themselves in harm's way to protect their children. Even birds should do it. So, I mean, in some way, it's innately ingrained in us and just the characteristics that the creation has upon this creation that we're upon. And I'll just go from there is that when we set those limits of what we claim or we as a society then go, that punishment doesn't fit the crime. And certain people, that's always, I mean, because we're all individuals, we have to understand that that's going to be separate within in each individual. Therefore, fear and peer pressure has to be applied to get somebody to think more of your way. It's like if you and I are talking, and then somewhere in this, I got peer pressured or panel pressured that I'm a really bad person because I'm arguing against children instead of for children. It's like there comes the point. As soon as that happens, we have to understand that in some way our psyche is being groomed in a certain extent too. That people are trying to groom us. That you're absolutely right. If somebody goes, I'm guilty of that, they should serve that and they should do it knowing that's their payment to society. But it's hard to find the society on the other side because some society will say your punishment didn't fit your crime according to me, but they
Mhm.
never went to that person's court, or they're getting judged by them, but they're not to whether they're peers or not peers. It's like this subject. That's why I take it to innocence, is because um, it doesn't matter. Because just like that, if an underage and an underage gets together, nobody has a problem with it. But that's
Well,
still
I do.
innocence being given away, right? Well, that's right. Some of us do have a problem with it, and that's why I think that education in school should be don't do it. There shouldn't be no, hey, do it, and if you do it, do this, and this is what this is, and it's a don't do it or you're going to jail in some way of don't do it, or there's legal consequences because you can't consent in any contract. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with another underage person, they could never consent, you can't consent. So it should be, in since we're talking legal, it should be taught in that legal aspect. If people
Yeah,
have to do time for doing the crime, they have to understand that at no matter what age, they're unable to consent, which means they're engaging in a criminal activity
yeah,
because it's a criminal activity.
yeah, yeah.
So those people that do their time,
Yeah, AJM, it's not an argument I'm having with Fallen. Fallen puts different viewpoints across. We are both in agreement to us. it's wrong. Okay, he's just he's using a different method. That's all. Pauline doesn't say that it's right in any way, and it's not an argument between us. We are.
It's wrong across the board. That's
Yeah.
my argument. It's wrong across the board. Stop putting an age limit on it because it has to do with innocence. So finding somebody guilty of something they didn't do because
I've
of
got a
that fact
question.
and they're
Yeah.
innocent, they're still doing harm to the
Yeah,
innocents.
I've got a question in relation to that. Okay, so if you've got let's say you've got a child who is 11 or under, right? Because society or the legal system over here has put an age limit on, right? Does that make it worse or less? You with me? If somebody has done something to a child under that age, I got this feeling that, as I say, the way I see it is, it's very black and white to me. I'm not making any apologies for that. I just see it as black and white. With this in this particular scenario, where a child is a child until they are an adult, and just because a child looks like an adult doesn't make it right that you or somebody, right, interferes with them and they end up assaulting them. And what I'm trying to get to is where or how do we resolve this so that there is a meaningful deterrent to stop it and to
You know,
protect?
what really gets me is that in that people want laws put in place, right? So it's like just in this critical thinking thing, right? Because the most detestable thing to me, right? I mean, I don't want to say the most, but one of the things that really was detestable to me was like if I'd be flipping through the channels and there would be people putting their children on display in makeup and making them look all
Mhm.
adult, and they were like young female children, and they were like dressing them all up and putting them in pageantries and doing all this stuff. It was like that right there, to my understanding of in that grooming and putting it out into I want to say the ether, or putting it out into people's minds of is they're like willfully as parents going,
Mhm.
we're going to make up our children and we're going to put them in bathing and we're going to parade them out on national TV in front of everybody. And it's almost like in that same thing of black and white. That's why I advocate for across the board, right? That stuff's illegal. And
I
then
I
people,
think I think that is disgusting doing that. I've never agreed with it because I agree you're actually sexualizing the children, and
you're grooming them.
yes. So that's wrong, and that to me is just as bad as actually doing it, physically doing it,
Uh,
because you are it's mental cruelty in my opinion, right? Because you are. I, I know what you mean.
Can
Let's,
I
for
say it's
argument's sake,
exploiting children?
you're
They're
exploiting children.
exploiting.
It's the same as trafficking, right? It's the same as physically assaulting them, except that you're installing something into their brain. It comes back to you are living your life through your children, right? You're making your children do something which you want. It's the same.
So
It's
that's what I'm saying.
glorifying.
When you make that argument of like all of these crimes, all of these things like grooming children, no matter what you do, the smallest little thing, like when you say that one YouTube channel that was doing whatever, but now they're doing something else. It's the smallest little thing is that carries straight across the board for me in that aspect because it's almost like that same thing. It's like In that I'm just going to take this off the course for a little bit, but it's like that 1A auditing. If I go into a public building and they try to tell me by policy I need to empty my pockets, and I tell them I ain't going to do it, and they tell me, well, you're going to leave, and I go, no, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to speak up for all. If some veteran walked up to me and I thanked them for thank them for their service to me, and I don't stand up against the tyranny that's getting put on me in public by the officials that are now claiming they have authority over me, I could never look a veteran in the eye and tell them thank you for your service if I'm not actually going to speak about it when the tyrant tries to tell me what to do. So it's the same thing with like the
Well,
children and
in
exploit
the
the children.
situation, yeah, in the situation we were just talking about, the tyrant is the parent for
Absolutely. Well,
allowing
the tyrant,
this.
it could actually be the
And
tyrant
I,
is even the television. The tyrant is the network. The tyrant is, in actuality, if nobody wanted to watch it, right, in some extent, if they weren't doing that to get people to watch it, it's like that grooming effect was going right through society, right? They were grooming everybody in society. That
Mhm.
was a big grooming thing to me. It's like I couldn't. It's like no.
Well, I totally agree with what you're saying, and from that point of view, right? And to me, there is no difference between that and somebody going out of their way grooming a child over the internet or through a social app or whatever. You with me? Even directly meeting up with a child for a specific purpose long term. There's no difference. And to prevent the physical, you've got to look at the grooming and the aspects of that. And I don't agree that parents should live their lives through their children, right? Regardless. But from this point of view, I see this as exactly the same thing because it is sexualizing a child, a minor, to look older than they are, prettier than they are, etc. Right? For an end for themselves, right? To me, that should be, if it can be proven, then, in the court of law, then the same thing should happen. That's why I say it's black and white. I'm not just talking about the physical side of an essay on a child. There's also the mental side of things and the abuse that they are receiving from mentally, from a over domineering an adult, adult, you know. A child will do what an adult tells them to do, more so from the parent. If it's the parent saying it, you've got to do this because that's the way they've been brought up. There are communities out there that unfortunately thrive off this sort of thing. And as it was pointed out, if everybody came forward, there wouldn't be, if we were to turn around and say, like, it's, 10-year minimum, for argument's sake, there's not enough room in the prisons. And my argument is build more prisons, and bigger prisons just for them. We have a prison here which is was dedicated to the most vile people you can think of that committed heinous crimes, right? And then they started moving ordinary prisoners in with lesser crimes, but maybe longer terms, sentences, right? And it's now going to be reverted back. It's called Monsters Mansion, you know. That's not the name of the prison, but that's the nickname, if you like, because all the monsters were put there. And I think that we need to do more of that, or, maybe just let them loose in an ordinary prison. Maybe that's the right thing to do. I don't know what the answer is with that, but I'm only looking at it, as I say, I believe there should be no such thing as time served because the victim serves the time, right? The parents serve the time, right? Their children serve the time, right, for life. Whereas we've got somebody who's been convicted and we're saying after 10 years, 15 years or whatever, they're allowed to go back into society because they have done their time under the law. Therefore, they have served their sentence, and it should not be used against them again, until such time as they've re-offended. And I'm saying that that's a risk I'm not prepared to accept. That's all.
See, there's the gray area, right, Grim? Because it's like, do we give them the chance? It's like that. There's the thing is like these people can't be cured, or they'll only do it again. They'll only do it again. They'll only do it again. So it's like it's been proven. It's like, yeah, well, there's still a percentage that hasn't done it again. There's still a percentage under treatment that in
No, no,
some
no, no,
way
no,
have tried
no.
it. No,
There's a percentage that haven't been caught. There is a
well,
percentage,
that's
a
probably
small
true.
percentage of them not doing it again, potentially.
That's
Right?
I'm not going to
I'm not
say those aren't
ruling that
true.
out. Right?
Right.
All I'm saying is there is a high percentage, which means to me the risk assessment, right, means it is too great to release these people back into society and or near children or to have any contact with children in any way, shape, or form. Right. And I don't know what the answer is. I'm saying that from a black and white point of view, right, in this scenario, is the risk acceptable for the possibility of reoffending on the basis that this is something where, if you want to have a better expression, folks, the wiring in their head is wired wrong because they believe in their heart and hearts or their little tiny brain cell that it is acceptable to do this to minors.
There's another thing that's kind of intriguing to me in some aspect. It's like when we as a society find out that the people that in some way we've placed above us in some way to speak for our views and speak for our point of view and will represent us in the higher echelons of power or government, and we realize that there's people up there that are doing this exact same thing that we detest so much, is that in going, well, if there wasn't a government, then we would all like be throwing rocks at each other and stuff like that. Like we're so dumb as a society that we couldn't figure out how to govern basically ourselves. And if there was nobody above us to rule us, like a lion tamer in a cage that keeps whipping us in the face with a whip, that we couldn't understand how to get along with our neighbor without these people that are doing atrocities that are above us and in power, that
Yeah.
these black and white situations that if that's a fact that nobody gets out, it's like, when are we as a society gonna, I guess, in some way break the cognitive dissonance that we think that the people that are, over us that got voted in are really doing the right thing. I mean,
Okay.
even in those
So,
courts or
all right.
whatever.
Okay. So my arguments, or my answer to that, I should say, is doesn't matter who you vote for, the government wins because the government is a machine, right? That's my opinion on it. Doesn't matter where you live, unless you've got a dictatorship where you don't have democracy, right? Um, then you are open to being ruled. we're supposed to have a democracy in the West, in Western countries. Okay, that means that you are giving your government permission to rule you or to make decisions on your behalf. What I'm saying is, in this situation, the people should be demanding this of the government to do X, Y, or Z, and not to have it overruled by people in robes who turn around and say, oh, it's all down to their human rights. I'm sorry, but in my opinion, if you perform this sort of act on a child, you should not have any human rights because you have not shown human rights to that child. And that's why I say it is black and white to me. There is no grey area. Because as soon as you introduce grey, you are now potentially risking another child from going through what the first child went through. If you're going to stop it or reduce it to as close to zero as practical, you've got to have a strong deterrent as the outcome. If you do this, this is what you're going to get. If you are found guilty, this is what you're going to get as a result. And maybe that could be argued for every single crime at the end of the day. Which again, if the deterrent isn't there, how are you going to prevent the crimes from happening?
That's some way I think that in some way the social experiment that we're all kind of trapped in the way that we are is that same thing. It's like if you don't like go to the root of the problem, it's almost like, a root canal or whatever. It's like those same kind of things. If you don't find the root of the problem and you do everything within your power to affect the root of the problem, to cure that, to get rid of that, then all the other is like surface. It almost, I don't want to make light of it, but it almost is like blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. But people have to be willing to like get down to the root of it. We can put all these laws in effect and whatever, but it's that same kind of thing. It's like, well, I'm going to go back to straight across the board. If they're not teaching children, don't do it. Don't do. I mean, I think
But
Brooklyn
it's
or
not
whoever
just
was on there,
children.
who was ever on
It's,
there in the beginning was like, even people do it with religion, and it's almost like in some societies will use that in some way as religion, because just like if I was to say, yeah, if everybody got back to, let's say, the Ten Commandments, you know what I mean, and just use them as the first and foremost law, or over in, let's say, the Muslims go, well, we're going to use Sharia law, and that stuff don't happen over here because, and it almost comes down to what are people really going to do to like root out the actual problem, not just deal with the people who've um, been found guilty of it according to this, but actually who's been found guilty of actually being part of it, and in some way perpetrating or
yeah, yeah.
perpetuating, like
You see,
perpetuating that problem.
okay, so I think, okay, I'll put it another way. I think, sort of in closing the live, I'd just like to say that there are two. I'm not talking from a religious point of view. I am not talking from an ethnic point of view or anything like that. I am just saying that treating children in this way, in any way which sexualizes them and promotes them as such, is wrong. And I do know that there are countries out there that have a different point of view. And there are some countries out there that take even stealing as once you're found guilty, you get a hand chopped off for argument's sake, right? And that's a deterrent. So not many people steal. There's only those, you have to address the reason why they're stealing. And usually it's down to the fact that they're poor. And it's down to the fact that they're stealing food to feed themselves. In this situation, you're talking about men and women who are using children to satisfy their sexual needs. And that is the bit which I find repulsive. And I think that we should have minimum sentencing. And that's the reason for, if you like, for this discussion. I know that some people haven't stayed with us throughout because they don't like the subject. And again, that's a problem with society because people don't like talking about it. They don't want to hear it. It's somebody else's problem. Yeah, it's the child's problem because society is allowing it to happen. And that's where my issue is. Society, from that point of view, is wrong because we should be against it. And if you think I'm wrong, say so. That's the idea.
Grim, I don't think you're wrong in that aspect that people, like I was saying earlier, that's what I think, that people shy away from it. They don't want nothing to do with it. They're scared of it because that fear affects people differently instead of the fear of we need to then band together in some way, figure it out. But it's such a conundrum to a certain extent that it is hard to figure out, but that it's to say that it may be the child's problem, like you're saying, it may
No, I'm not
end
saying
up
it's the
being the
child's
child's
problem.
problem, but it's
No, I'm not
our
saying,
problem to figure
no,
out.
no, you
It's
misunderstood. It's not the child's problem. How can it be the child's problem? The child is the victim.
no,
The
but that's
child
what I'm
doesn't
saying.
understand. Yeah.
No, but
No, it's
honestly,
not
that's
the
the
child's
child's
problem.
problem. Hang on just a minute. Let me just
Yeah.
finish this and I'll let you take right back over. It ends up being the child's problem because the child is the victim. So it's always going to be a problem. It's like the math book. The math book is just a bunch of problems. This child has to figure out this problem through their life. So that's why I say it's the child's problem. It's our problem to figure out as like consenting adults as in society. And what you're trying to do is going, it's black and white and trying to, because it ends up being take that off the child in some way to protect the child so that that child doesn't have to deal with that problem, because that ends up, like you said earlier, the child's the one who has to live with it. That's their problem that they have to try to figure out for the rest of their life in some way, in some manner. They have to figure this problem out that either it affects them psychologically, it makes them feel unworthy, it makes them feel dirty, whatever it does to them, it ends up being a problem for them. We have to try to solve that problem because, as we would say, they're not of an age of an accountability. They're not of an age of consent. So, like you're
Right.
saying, it's up to us to do in some way what we can, and in that way, morally to a fact too, and trying to understand of how to solve that problem for the children so that they
Yeah.
can
If you eliminate
bring.
the problem from starting, right, as far as practical, right, because of deterrence, therefore you are helping future children not being victims, shall we say, right? I have done a lot of research around this. I have spoken to survivors who had been abused in the past when they were children. And they all say, oh, I tend not to think about it. I do my best not to think about it because I know it's going to influence me as an adult, or it has influenced me as an adult. So I've listened to different aspects, but at the end of what I call the day in this is if the law or the sentencing was consistent, then that would resolve a lot of um, problems for future children, right? And it would also hopefully stop people from performing these vile acts in the first place. And I do accept that there will be some who will do it regardless because they feel this compulsion, right? For whatever reason. Again, it's a feeling, which in my opinion is unacceptable. And this is why I say it is black and white at the end, because it is. If you've got a problem, what's the easiest way to reduce the risk? You look at that and you reduce the risk. The risk is reoffending, right? And why I agree with people who go out seeking these predators to out them. What I disagree with totally is the way that, certainly on YouTube and in general terms, because I've heard it a few times, said the least. Oh, they're a nonce, they're a PDF, but there's no evidence to back it up. And where there has been evidence, you've done a little bit more of a deep dive into it, and you actually find potentially that it may not have been a child that was a victim. They've still done something really stupid, and they've assaulted an adult. To me, that's for another subject. You with me? That's another subject to be discussed at sometime in the future. I just don't know what the
Absolutely.
answer is to reduce the threats to our children by these vile human beings. And I use human beings because technically they still are. But I don't
Right.
believe that they're just as bad as, if you like, an ape or whatever, or a cat or a dog that has no understanding, you with me, of what
Right. I
their
have a
brother or their
question.
sister or whatever, you with me. Does that make sense?
Right.
They,
Right.
they, they have
It
no
makes
compulsion.
sense. It makes sense to the point that it's difficult. It's difficult as a society, as in I want to say, when people say act like an adult or use your adult senses, and as a society to come together as some kind of even though there's different countries, but we would come together as some kind of a worldwide tribe and something of understanding right from wrong and what we all agree is right from wrong is that when you were discussing just a minute ago about how you've researched it and you've talked to these people and even victim of it and how they have to what they have to do to face it and what they're doing and everything and how hard it is for these people and it is hard and it gets us people who's had to deal with it to speak out because I've been a product of it myself and I speak out because it causes me to like see them shows on TV and it's like this and it's like something in my psyche clicks on it and go, that's not right. That's not right. That led to this happening. That led to
Yep.
this happening. That causes this. So it's almost like that same kind of thing. So it's like what you were talking about, the YouTube things in some way. It's like in some way, I can see some of those people that do that, like quite a few of them is actually exploiting children themselves and being predators themselves because they're preying on that person that got put through it or whatever. And somehow
Yeah.
they may be able to find that trigger within that person that nobody else would have found because they've been doing really good trying to get through all the problems that situation placed upon them. But these people somehow in their predatory behavior has went out and seek that out within that person and then wants to call this person bad and all that they've been through and trying to cope with themselves is this person tricked them into something and not realizing that they're just a product of what they went through as a child themselves. And that's why we have to be really careful as in
I,
figuring things.
Yeah, I would say that certain words that we associate with these convicted, and I have to say convicted because the reasoning behind it, but it's bounded around and it waters it down, the terms which are used. Jomo, paedophile, PDF, you know, whatever you want to call it, whatever label we put on it, you with me? As soon as you start using it in everyday language and you start calling people with no evidence whatsoever, that waters it down and it becomes normal. I've never ever accused someone of being one of these if they're not. I call it how it is. It's black and white.
Especially the connotation that they want to put behind it, that those
Yes.
people themselves are putting that connotation. It's the most detestable thing you could ever be, yet they're willing to just start calling people that, like you said,
Hmm.
without evidence.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, who are those people? It's like, who are
And
those people that actually do that?
well, exactly. I mean that comes down to morals and a few other things, etc. But what all I wanted to do with tonight's topic was to talk about it and to be open about it, to invite people to be open about it. And I'm going to say, considering the topic, this is probably one of the worst rating shows I've done in a long time. Why? Because of the topic. Because people don't want to know. That is the biggest problem. Or they
Well,
don't
I'll
want to
share that
talk
with you,
about it.
right?
Or they
I'm
don't
going
want
to
to talk
share that
about
with
it.
you.
Does that make sense?
I think that this is that fear, that some people. I think that the last time we talked about it, people like fear is good, fear is good, fear is good. But I mean, in some way, I agree with you that if we're too afraid to talk about it, you can never solve it. It will never get solved. And that's the one thing about fear. And that same thing is that I do think that people should not be afraid to come forward and speak about what they've been
Mhm.
through, whether it's been in the past, like you said earlier, to be not afraid to come forward and talk. And I think that goes across the board, that if people don't stop being afraid to talk and discuss this, nothing's ever going to change, right?
Yes. And this was an experiment, if you like, an experiment on YouTube, and I hate to say I was proven right. Even the people who I have spoken to before the show started um, haven't come in. Yet they can see where I'm coming from. They agree, sort of, in principle, to a certain extent, etc. But then they raised other issues around it, and I'm saying, but black and white. We've got to protect our children. And I'm not talking about my children, my granddaughter. I'm talking about all children. Yet we started off with quite a few people watching, and now we're dribbling. And
Sorry about
it's
that. You think that's because of me?
no, I think it's the subject.
Right.
It's not
Because
because of
if we
you.
can't,
I
Grim,
think it's the subject. People are
right. If
afraid to talk about it and be open about it.
I think that people don't, and some people are not all, but there's quite a few people that, in some don't. If you can't, it's just like that. I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, but if you can't protect yourself, how can you protect any children in that aspect? That if people are in some way, like you said, if this is really the fact that there's a bunch of people and they all went off because of the subject, and if they can't find protection within themselves, like in that same thing, to go, I agree with you, but I'm not going to show up because I don't want to hear any other comment other than this, then how can that person, this is just my opinion, how could that person actually protect a child? How do they know they're not going to be a person that causes harm if they're not willing to find a protection within themselves to face a subject that they
Yeah.
might find adversarial to
Yeah.
not even to their beliefs, but just a subject that challenges them to fight through that fear, fight through that mental fog, because without them anyway, right? There's no change in it. If they fall
Mhm.
away, they'll never be able to step up and put forth a um, uh, I guess in some way a well-meaning or a
Mhm.
protective viewpoint put forward as in a protection
Well,
aspect.
over in the States, there is, I think it's someone called Nancy May has put a bill before Congress to make the death penalty as the only way to prevent what has happened and or what has come about as a result of the Epstein files. Now, okay, you introduce the death penalty to from a federal point of view over in the States, that takes it out of the court's hands theoretically. But what's the betting that somebody who gets, if that got through, and I don't think it's got a can hell's chance, unfortunately, but if that got through, how long before it's taken to the Supreme Court and you've got the men in robes and women in robes who overturn it and say it's unconstitutional? Yes, it's protecting the children because it's the ultimate deterrent at the end of the day. And it's that that made me think about it. And I have thought about it for about a week or so now. And I just thought, well, I'll try and experiment. I'll try and raise it. I will discuss it openly and invite people to come and discuss it. It's not an argument, it's a debate. There could have been, for argument's sake, a preacher that came up and saying there it is wrong to take somebody else's life as a result of what they have done, etc. Yet, for argument's sake, their Bible says an eye for an eye. You know, I just wanted to discuss look at what the options are. It's not going to change anything. I'm realistic here. I live in the real world, not in reality. You know, some sort of alternative reality in social media. But unless we discuss it, nothing's going to change, and that's the issue. It's about raising the
Anything,
awareness.
right? Anything that I don't know how true this is, whether you agree with me or not, but I think that you might. Anything worth changing requires a discussion.
Agreed. If
So
people aren't
that's why I
prepared to
think
discuss
that
it,
this, huh?
if people aren't prepared to discuss it, you're never going to get change.
Absolutely. That's why I think that, um, you know, this detestable, it's like me. I find a lot of those show everything detestable, but I can't let that. And then we have to understand within ourselves whether we need to move forward with some kind of mind talk within ourselves to go, what causes me to fear that is if you face that fear or just that same kind of thing, because somebody can just come up and go, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. And they can just repeat that and go, it doesn't matter what you say, it'll never change my mind. So then they just go, I'm going to drop out. But if they don't understand that within themselves, that's they're not allowing themselves to move forward, because even though they won't change their mind, if they're not willing to engage, then they can't put forth that effort that they could really have an effect that could change somebody else's mind.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. You have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I think, if nothing else, I've demonstrated that people fear the idea of discussing such a subject. And it could be that they're so strong, they feel so strongly about it, they don't trust themselves on platforms such as YouTube to openly discuss it without either coming over too strongly or find something that somebody says as being supportive of these people and then going off on one, etc. The idea is to openly discuss it, which is the way that I put it in the description. Let's discuss openly what should be a minimum sentence that the courts judges should give anyone found guilty of sexual assault on a minor. And, just goes to show that apathy wins every single time, unfortunately.
I don't mean to laugh at that, but it's really weird too. It's that word apathy and the way that it's used, right? Because right next to it is the word empathy. And that's exactly what scares everybody. It's that same fear of what you're talking about. And it's like, to me, it's like, I feel bad in that aspect, is that a lot of those people, um, let's just say there's been a lot of people that's been affected by this, right? Even as
Mm-hmm.
children, they've had to go through stuff. And there's a lot of people that's been affected by it. And I can't really find anything wrong with the people that's been affected by it and went, I don't want to talk about it. But if they never, there's something in the I guess the treatment and the philosophy of the mind is like, if you never face it, if you never talk about it, it's even those people like myself. I was given the opportunity to stay bound by it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it can bind you. It's something that can bind you.
It's a
And
very
it
emotive
has
subject, Paul. And whether there are people who lock it away and don't want to discuss it. And I accept that. You with me? Don't have an issue with that whatsoever. And I understand. Right. And I agree it is entirely up to them. But there's people who have never gone through it. Right. And some people are strong-willed, feel strongly about the subject, and there's others who just don't. And this is the reason why I said about apathy. They accept it. They accept it happens, and they think that whatever the outcome of the trial is and the sentence is just because of the word justice. And I'm saying my argument is, justice for who? Society? Or is it justice for the child that's going to be living potentially the nightmares for the rest of their lives? Or if they can handle it and they can get on with their life, so to speak, they live with it. And that is the issue. People tend to learn to live with it, and they don't want to talk about it, or they've come to a point of understanding for within themselves. And I have the utmost respect for everybody. And I was just thought, well, how do you stop it? That's all. And I'm either right or I'm wrong. Only time will tell, But I don't
there's
think,
a gray
unless we
area,
talk
Grim.
about it, we're never going to be
Right.
able to move forward on it. That's all.
And
And
that's Oh, I keep interrupting.
Oh,
I said I was going to do better, but we get to
that's
talking,
all
and
right.
it's
You're all
almost
right.
like
Don't
I'm
worry.
sitting next to you. I'm sitting next to you in a room, and I don't really mean to talk over you
No,
in
you're
that
fine.
aspect, but it's like in that same kind of aspect is that this has been rooted so deep within people is that it's hard. It is hard because it's hard for me because I'm going to tell you, this is something I'm going to, I guess, share with the internet is that after my last time that I was on and we were talking and just the trauma of being through it myself, I couldn't sleep. I mean, I
Mm.
couldn't sleep that night. The next day, the next night after that, I was like, man, did I make a mistake? Did I make a mistake going on there and trying to, in some way, um, share my aspect of my character after having to go through that kind of thing and knowing that you can't fear it forever. But I mean, honestly, I couldn't sleep that night. I couldn't sleep that next day. I couldn't sleep that next night because but it's almost like within me, I was telling myself that it proved to me that there was something within myself that I haven't, I guess, in some way accepted, or I haven't, there was something still inside of me that I hadn't faced yet. It's like that monster, like you were talking about.
Mm.
This is like a thing for monsters and whatever. And that monster that's inside of all the individuals that stuff happens to, it's like, even at the age I'm at, is it proved to me that that time that I spoke, it's like that monster came back and there was still aspects of that monster that I had to realize that I've never faced before. That there was still some hidden that I'd put away in my psyche that I haven't wanted to face and deal with because of that trauma or that emotional thing that goes with it that may um, drive the decisions that I make through my life. And that's one of the things why I speak up more now is because it's like all of us who survived it, right? In some way that people would say, there's no cure for it, there's no cure for it, there's no cure for it. And it's go, well, how did I become a survivor? How did anybody else in some way that is still there and able through their life to make meaning out of things and knowing that their life can still have meaning, how did they survive if there's no cure? If there's no cure for it, once all that happens to you, there's no cure. These people can't be cured. They can't be cured. It's like, well,
I don't
what
think,
saved
yeah, but
me?
I don't see it. I don't. For something to be cured, you need to look at it from a point of view that there is a disease, right? I don't say it's a disease. I don't say that it's about a cure. I'm saying that any essay on a child, on a minor, is wrong because of the trauma you put that child through at the time and the after effects that they live with the remainder of their lives. And you have put that person who has done that to that child, it doesn't matter how much time they spend behind locked doors, right? That is nothing compared to the agony that they have put that person through from a young age to whenever they pass, right? It's nothing, really isn't. And I just want to, as I keep saying, I'm going to finish on this, Paul, and all I want is to protect all children. So you don't have to go through it. Or let's mitigate the risk to children by having a meaningful deterrent. Whatever that deterrent is, I don't know the answer to. I'm saying life imprisonment. That's all I'm saying. There could
I
be
agree.
millions of people who disagree with me, right? And the lawmakers, the justice system may disagree with me for whatever reason. Maybe it's down to costs. I don't know. Right? Or maybe they just think that I'm being inhumane. But whatever that adult did to that child is also inhumane. So from
Yeah,
that point of
I
view,
agree.
that's
I agree to that
what I'm
point that
saying.
it goes straight across the board. It's like anybody and everybody. It's like you found this. It's like it transcends that age thing. It's like that deterrent that if you say it's not black and white, that it's that, and you care about children and it's about deterring it so that it doesn't happen to children. I would say to you from my experiences in life that I would agree with you, but that gets carried across the board. It gets carried across the board to people in charge, to networks, to the television,
Absolutely.
to
Yep.
that
Absolutely
that
agree.
whole aspect.
Let children be children. They grow up too fast as it is, and let them live their lives as children. We shouldn't be forcing this aspect of adulthood onto them in any way, shape, or form. And I can discuss other aspects of it. Yeah, I can do, no problem. But that's not what tonight is about. It's just about having a discussion, a chat regarding how we can put a stop to this. And if you know what, if it happens to happen and it becomes something fantastic, but I can't do anything. I'm just me. The only people who can do it is the people. The people have to fight against it, not just against governments or the latest political thing which is going on, etc. I mean, crying out loud, we've opened the doors to God knows what coming over the channel, right? And we've got politicians defending what they're doing. And I'm saying, well, hang on a second. You've not done a proper risk assessment on what you're letting in because you don't know. And then you've got people who do these things regardless of where they came from. They could be homegrown, which a lot of them are, unfortunately. But there again, we don't have a minimum sentence. It's very up and down as to what the sentences are, who they are, where they are in the social ladder. There's all these different aspects. And that's why no politician would ever take a minimum sentence as being viable. Because without sounding like a cardboard cutout, they could all be in it together. You never know. Anyway, Fawn, thank you for hopping up. I do appreciate it. Thanks very much, as always. I'll pick a different topic next week. You never know. We might get more than just a couple of people listening in. I think it's a topic, to be honest. It's not
It
you.
is
It's
a
not
topic.
me. It's the topic, and people are frightened of the topic, I think.
It's a
And what we
topic
talk
worth
about.
discussing. I'll tell you that, Grim. Honestly, that's one reason why I came up again because I believe you're absolutely right, and not enough people do it. That this is a topic worth discussing, and it is a bummer that more people can't. It's hard to come to terms with it, man, because children are precious. They
Yeah.
absolutely are
Yeah.
a
I've
precious
got
thing,
I've
and
I've I've got less than 1,000 subs and it's going down. And I think it could be the topics that I'm picking and people are unsubscribing from me. Do you know what? It's not about subscribers. I've got to be honest, not to me. It is about the topics of discussion. And if people don't want to join in, they don't want to join in. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. And
absolutely. Well,
that's
thank you
my
for putting the link and letting me come up because I mean you didn't have to.
yeah, you listen, You're welcome. You do put different points of view across. I don't have an issue with you coming up, and if somebody else has an issue, well, that's their problem, not mine. That's how I see it. Black and white.
They should come up. I mean, because that's the panel. I enjoy
That's
it.
it.
It's that same thing. It's like if we can't come together, even in a YouTube channel or whatnot, is I do disagree with, like, people call it the foundry. If you don't think like us, you're not allowed to come in. And it's just, as a society, um, these are never meant to harm. They're meant to move forward, right?
Exactly. If you stop, you're going backwards. You've got to keep moving forward. And emotive subjects like this need to be discussed. And if people don't like it, okay, stay away. And that's what you have done. And I thank you for that. Because I don't want to upset anybody. Not on this subject. If I want to talk about politics now, that's a different kettle of fish, you know. But this is actually more about protecting children. There's no political bias in this whatsoever. But if somebody thinks that there is, please put it down in the comments afterwards. Cheers, Fallen. See you next week or next time. Take
Cheers.
care. Cheers now. Bye. And to everybody who has appeared in the chat and spoke to us or been listening in, thanks very much. I do appreciate it. And thank you for coming in. Sometimes these subjects are discussed. Sometimes they're very close to home. If you've been affected in any way, shape or form, please seek professional advice. Thanks very much. Take care now. Peace out.